Let me share a peculiar observation about stillness in our connected era. We inhabit a realm where nearly everything is broadcast. Celebrations, daily routines, breathtaking views, moments of vulnerability, outbursts of joy, even sorrow, carefully curated with digital enhancements. Yet, some individuals remain entirely out of sight. They navigate the digital currents with quiet observation, absorbing much, but sharing little, if ever. You might even know someone like this. Perhaps you are that person. And this is the question that often occupies people's thoughts. Why? Why would someone opt for obscurity when the entire world seems to be clamoring for recognition? It's easy to surmise that those who don't contribute content are merely reserved or introverted. However, that's an incomplete perspective. Beneath the surface lies a complex psychological landscape, revealing profound insights into human disposition, self-perception, and a subtle dissent against a culture that prioritizes visibility. For certain individuals, silence doesn't signify absence. It represents autonomy. It's the capacity to dictate what the public sphere does not access. Whether we readily acknowledge it or not, digital platforms have subtly altered how we define ourselves. They champion outward projection and applaud constant engagement. Nevertheless, those who choose to remain in the periphery often possess the clearest vision. They observe without the compulsion to interject. They contemplate before responding. They analyze before forming judgments. Researchers have uncovered a compelling phenomenon. Individuals who refrain from frequent posting tend to exhibit higher levels of self-discipline, introspection, and emotional self-reliance. They are generally less susceptible to social comparison and the need for external validation. In essence, their focus isn't on proving their identity, but on comprehending it. And in an environment saturated with performative displays, this is a rarity.
Let's be candid. Much of our online output isn't simply communication. It's a deliberate construction of self. It's an unconscious audition for acceptance. Every accompanying text, every photograph, every status update implicitly asks, "This is my curated persona. Do you approve?" But when one ceases to post, a transformation occurs. You begin to disassociate your inherent value from digital accolades. You stop thinking in terms of shareable sound bites. You start experiencing life for its own sake, rather than through the lens of an audience. This is the subtle psychology underpinning the choices of many who choose not to post. They seek genuine connection in a space that feels increasingly artificial. They don't inherently dislike digital platforms. They simply find their authentic selves absent from them. This isn't a stance against technology or social interaction.
It's a refusal to distill one's existence into mere highlights. Once you witness the ease with which perceptions can be manipulated, you naturally begin to value that which cannot be easily shared. Silence, depth, imperfection, truth. For some, the decision to abstain from posting stems from a profound emotional depletion. Perhaps they once shared everything, only to discover one day that it no longer felt authentic. They recognized that with each beautiful moment shared, an unspoken pressure mounted to constantly outdo themselves. They were no longer living, they were performing. Consequently, they withdrew quietly, without fanfare. A gradual fading from the digital stream, however, a common misunderstanding persists. Abstaining from posting doesn't equate to a lack of feeling or caring. Often, it signifies an elevated concern for presence, for significance, for safeguarding what is deeply cherished. Psychology identifies a concept known as psychological ownership, the profound sense that something, be it a thought, a memory, or an experience, is intrinsically yours. Upon sharing it publicly, that sense of proprietary connection diminishes. The moment becomes communal property, vulnerable to scrutiny, misinterpretation, even ridicule. Thus, individuals who refrain from posting frequently act as guardians of their personal experiences. They preserve their moments as inviolable, private, and pure. This might not represent melancholy or isolation, but rather a unique form of liberation. Consider this. When was the last time you engaged in a meaningful activity and felt no compulsion to announce it? When was the last time you experienced joy, sorrow, or achieved something significant and didn't immediately consider sharing it publicly? That ingrained impulse, that drive to display, is not innate, it's learned. It's the product of years of likes, shares, and intermittent reinforcement, conditioning our brains to equate validation with worth. When an individual opts out of this system, it can be perceived as defiance, but it is also a form of healing. They begin to rediscover the simple pleasure of pursuing activities for their own sake once more. Preparing a meal without documenting it, traveling without broadcasting it, experiencing emotions without needing to articulate them. Within this space, something reawakens. A self-awareness that requires no spectators. However, not everyone who forgoes posting does so from a place of inner tranquility. Some are driven by apprehension, the fear of judgment, rejection, or being misinterpreted. Digital platforms have amplified a subtle form of anxiety that psychologists term self-presentational pressure, the pervasive awareness of being observed, even in solitude. For many, this is profoundly draining. They worry that their contributions might be misunderstood, or worse, overlooked. Consequently, they withdraw. not from a lack of desire for connection, but because the perceived cost of visibility is too substantial. They wish to be seen, but authentically, not superficially.
Paradoxically, the most reserved individuals online often possess the most vibrant inner lives. They are not absent, they are overflowing, choosing stillness over spectacle. There's a profound philosophical implication to this deliberate quietude. In a world that incessantly demands attention, choosing invisibility becomes a statement of self-definition. It declares, "My existence transcends your perception." They may browse through the lives of others, offering silent nods, smiles, or occasional pangs of emotion, but they rarely project themselves, because they grasp something many do not. Not every lived experience is intended for public consumption. Some of life's most impactful moments, personal growth, profound loss, significant transitions, occur quietly, unnoticed, and unshared. After navigating enough of these private transformations, one begins to realize that being unseen does not equate to being inconsequential. It is, in fact, the very crucible where identity is forged, not performed. This is where the inherent contradiction lies. Social media was conceived to foster connection, yet it often leaves individuals feeling more disconnected than ever. When you cease posting, you abandon the pursuit of digital proximity and begin to cultivate genuine relationships. You start to recognize who reaches out without the necessity of updates. You learn who remembers you without constant reminders. That form of connection, raw and unadvertised, feels more substantial, more heartfelt, and infinitely more authentic. And it is within this realm that those who don't post truly reside. They build bonds that require no external corroboration. They find solace in moments that remain private and allow life to unfold naturally, unmediated by content creation. A crucial element of this is also identity fortification, knowing who you are regardless of external observation. When you are comfortable in your own company, you have no need for an audience to validate your worth. This is not arrogance. It is serenity. And ironically, those who refrain from posting often possess the most captivating narratives, which they reserve for in-person exchanges rather than digital ones. For them, authentic connection is not quantified by comments or likes, but by shared silences, by meaningful eye contact, by laughter that needs no witnesses. These are individuals who carry immense inner worlds, who process information deeply, observe constantly, and understand implicitly. They do not require global acknowledgement of their existence. They simply need to live it. And perhaps, in a world so desperately seeking attention, their quietude is not a deficiency. It serves as a mirror, a gentle reminder that not everything of significance must be shared, and that sometimes the most profoundly human act is to keep something entirely for oneself. You know what's remarkable? The longer someone disengages from social media, the more their perception of the world transforms. Colors appear more vivid,
time seems to stretch. Conversations feel richer. It's as if stepping away from the clamor allows reality to reassert itself. Because when you stop performing, you begin to truly experience. There's an understated beauty in navigating life without feeling the need to document every step. You're not concerned with optimal angles, lighting, or crafting the perfect caption. You are simply present, fully immersed in the moment, rather than observing it from the outside. And this is a state that social media rarely permits us to achieve. The underlying psychology of this phenomenon runs deeper than mere preference. It's rooted in how our brains process affirmation. Each time we share content online and receive attention, likes, comments, reactions, our brains release dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with reward and habit formation.
Over time, this cultivates a craving for such validation, leading us to conceptualize experiences in terms of their potential to be shared, rather than their inherent reality. Now, consider an individual who actively resists this cycle, deliberately choosing to disengage from the dopamine feedback loop. This isn't a lack of interest, it's a demonstration of control. It requires significant self-awareness to resist something designed for perpetual engagement. Those who choose not to post often exhibit a robust internal locus of control, meaning their sense of self-worth and contentment originates internally, rather than from external approval. They don't require digital affirmation to believe in their own adequacy. What's even more fascinating is that studies indicate individuals who take extended breaks from posting or consuming social media content often report a tangible improvement in their emotional equilibrium and overall life satisfaction. When your sense of identity is no longer constantly reflected back to you, it solidifies and becomes authentic. You cease editing your life into easily digestible segments and instead embrace its messy, beautiful, unfiltered complexity. And perhaps this is the true act of defiance. Remaining whole in a world that celebrates fragmentation. However, digital silence doesn't always signify tranquility. At times, it conceals weariness. For many, social media initially served as a conduit for connection, but ultimately led to exhaustion. There's a subtle emotional drain that arises from observing everyone's meticulously curated highlight reels while struggling to assemble your own behind-the-scenes narrative. Comparisons within, even unintentional. Self-doubt surfaces, despite rational knowledge to the contrary. Eventually, some individuals opt to withdraw, not out of resentment, but as a measure of self-preservation. They recognize they owe the world no performance, no explanation for their quietude, and no need to continually assert their happiness to be believed. This is one of the understated truths of our generation. We've conflated visibility with value, assuming that to be significant, one must be noticed. But genuine meaning requires no witnesses. Some of the most formative experiences of your life
those that shape your very being, will unfold without a single observer. No cameras, no captions, no audience. Just you. And perhaps this is what those who choose not to post understand most profoundly. They recognize that privacy is not synonymous with isolation. It is a deep form of self-intimacy. When you cease broadcasting every fleeting thought, you begin to hear your own inner voice once more. You reconnect with those aspects of yourself that were obscured by the digital din. Your unspoken desires, your latent fears, your internal guidance system. In today's landscape, this constitutes a profoundly spiritual reconnection. Not a withdrawal, but a homecoming. Naturally, this path isn't always serene. Moments of uncertainty arise, questioning whether silence renders one invisible, whether one is falling behind while others project progress. However, with time, a beautiful realization dawns. Your worth does not diminish when unobserved. It remains constant, like the quiet hum in a room after a storm. And perhaps this is the essence of genuine confidence. Not the boisterous declarations seen online, but the calm assurance found offline. Some may question, if you didn't document it, did it truly happen? Yet the reality is that the experiences that most profoundly shape us rarely grace our digital feeds. Your personal growth, your emotional wounds, your private triumphs, your discreet acts of compassion. These reside in memory, not in media. And perhaps that is sufficient.
When psychologists discuss authentic self-expression, they highlight congruence, the harmonious alignment between one's internal state and their outward presentation. However, in the era of digital augmentation, this alignment is perpetually distorted. You begin to inhabit a version of yourself meticulously curated for approval. Therefore, when an individual opts out of posting, it may be their method of preserving congruence, of safeguarding the delicate truth that exists between their inner and outer worlds. They don't require universal acknowledgement of their feelings to validate their authenticity. They don't need to capture every sunset to recall its essence. They live their lives fully and quietly. And here lies the paradox. Those who live with minimal outward expression often experience life with the greatest intensity. They are not sidetracked by the performative aspects, but rather absorb details that others overlook. The subtle shift of light on a surface, the pregnant pause before someone speaks, the distant murmur of laughter. They are present, and presence is the scarcest commodity in a world fixated on capturing attention. Yet, this very presence can sometimes lead to misunderstanding. Individuals might perceive them as detached, enigmatic, or even aloof. However, upon
upon closer examination, their silence is not an indication of emptiness, but of profound depth. It's the serenity that arises from no longer needing to articulate oneself to be understood. There's a quiet self-assurance that accompanies the understanding that you don't need to be known by everyone, only comprehended by a select few. And this is a truth that those who refrain from posting grasp implicitly. They understand that not every revelation is intended for a broad audience, that certain aspects of oneself deserve to remain untouched by algorithms and public opinion. Once something enters the public domain, it ceases to be exclusively yours.
It becomes subject to interpretation, scrutiny, and prevailing trends. And perhaps some moments are too sacred for such exposure. So, the next time you encounter someone who consistently refrains from posting, do not assume they are in hiding. They might simply be living. They may have discovered a sense of peace within the unlit corners of existence, far removed from the blue luminescence of a screen. They might be the ones who have rediscovered what the rest of us have perhaps forgotten. That being unseen does not equate to being alone. That quietude does not signify emptiness. And that sometimes the most genuine expression of who you are is silence. Ultimately, we are not meant to be performances. We are meant to be people. And those who choose not to post serve as a quiet, unfiltered, and beautifully invisible reminder of that fundamental truth.